Now to me, growing up, football wasn't just about goals. It was about what happened after the goal. Like, I would go into games, maybe at lunchtime football, and plan the celebration that I was going to execute after bagging. Because it didn't matter how bad the goal that I scored was, if my celebration was good, then the crowd was getting on their feet. And the crowd in question was probably my PE teacher and like 4 of the friends that used to watch football back in school. But this same feeling of celebrating a goal on the playground after you've scored is the same as a professional footballer after they've scored in a stadium full of 30 to 60,000 fans. What they do next matters a lot to them. So in this video, we're going to be talking about some of the greatest celebrations in football. And there's already going to be people typing, "Oh, but you missed this one out." I know. So this is going to be a 100-part series. We are not stopping this until all the best celebrations ever are covered. Okay, maybe I don't know. Maybe if this video hits 10,000 likes, I'll do that. But that's impossible. And you might be thinking before we get into this video that the game is absolutely gone.
The game's gone, innit? The game's gone.
We've got guys that are wearing red hats indoors with pajamas and sliders talking about celebrations being the most important thing in football. Well, welcome to the Jib Rules channel, where we like to talk about anything and everything about football. So the first guy that we're going to be talking about is Thierry Henry. Because back in 2005, in a game between Arsenal and Wigan, Thierry Henry would execute one of the most aura-filling moments in football history. It was iconic. Let me not say aura-filling because people probably just clicked off the video. The old heads are screaming at me and they're telling me to go bold. This was Thierry Henry during his peak years, and he was exuding confidence in every single game that he entered. And in this game against Wigan, he would be stood over a free kick. It was about 30 yards out against Wigan Athletic. Thierry Henry steps up to take the free kick, and this is when an iconic moment would be produced. And as soon as Thierry Henry placed this ball down to take the free kick, the opposition knew exactly what was going to happen. You see, Thierry Henry was infamous in the league at this point for taking quick free kicks. He'd done it before in previous occasions against the likes of Aston Villa and Chelsea and wanted to catch the keeper off guard. Arsenal had earned this free kick when the score was 2-1 in the game, and Henry had seen the opportunity to take this free kick quickly, but the referee at the time, Graham Poll, was having none of it. Because as soon as Thierry Henry had stood over the ball to take the quick free kick, the referee had gotten over it, standing in front of the ball and halting Thierry from taking a quick free kick. He pretty much said this, "Thierry, I don't really think you're going to be doing any of that quick free kick stuff in this game. We've had a bunch of complaints from other teams in the league this season, so just wait to the whistle, and then on your marks, get set, go." And you could just imagine the rage that filled Thierry Henry's blood. He just got rage baited by a referee. Back in 2005, rage baiting wasn't even a word in the Urban Dictionary. So Thierry said, okay, fine. I'll wait. I'm okay with that. I'm not going to get a yellow or a red card in this situation by protesting it. I'ma just wait. And after a short pause that allowed the Wigan's defence to properly be set up for this free kick to be taken, suspense was building. And while this suspense just built up and built up, the Wigan back line had all been set. But what would follow would be a moment of sheer brilliance, because Thierry Henry would just whip this ball, arcing it over the wall, hitting the post, and it would go into the back of the net. And with the free kick going in and ultimately winning Arsenal the match in a thriller that ended 3-2, Thierry Henry would celebrate by looking at the referee and saying, "Is that enough? Is that enough?" He rage baited the rage baiter by saying, "Was that enough? Was that enough?" Giving the referee the look of, "You tried to stop me, but I took my time and I still scored. Is that enough?" Watching this back, you know the exact tone of voice that Thierry said this to the referee in. And this honestly had to be one of the coldest celebrations in football that I've ever seen, because it was almost like an anti-celebration. He just stood there, looked at the referee and said, "Is that enough?" Yeah, because he just put the ball into the back of the net. His teammates are coming over to him and hugging him, and he's looking at the referee dead in his eyes. Henry's goal would put Arsenal 3-1 up before half time, and ultimately Wigan would score one but would not win the game. And this is not the Wigan side that we all knew, you know, the one that got relegated even though they qualified for the Europa League when they won the FA Cup. No, this was a different sort of Wigan that at the time in the league this season were like second place. But from one celebration that required little to no movement to another that made an entire stadium start dancing. Let's talk about Shabalala celebration in the World Cup back in 2010. And this one's crazy because I remember watching this with my own two eyes. Maybe I reached Unk status already, but this World Cup was probably, I think, one of my first ever World Cups that I properly sat down and watched. It was a World Cup opener in South Africa with the hosts taking on Mexico. So let's set the scene. It's June 11th, 2010, and the World Cup is being hosted in South Africa, with the opening match being held in Johannesburg. And with that came atmosphere, vibes, and vuvuzelas. If you guys remember the vuvuzelas, it was like it's like an instrument that they were just playing it in the crowd for every single game. This was just building up atmosphere, making games more tense than they ever needed to be. And as the vuvuzelas were buzzing like a swarm of bees, we were hearing the likes of Waka Waka by Shakira in the background, alluding to the atmosphere that this was going to be a tournament of a lifetime. And just imagine me and a bunch of you guys that were similar ages, you know, growing up, watching the World Cup, sitting on the sofa after school and watching this thinking, what am I witnessing? This was my first World Cup experience, and it was one that I will hold on for the rest of my life. But that experience was topped off by an opening game goal that would include a celebration that I would be recreating on the playground. Because after a nervy first half between South Africa, the hosts, and Mexico, there would finally be a breakthrough. And in the 55th minute, after a bit of transitional counter-attacking play, a South African winger called Shabalala would be through on goal. A South African midfielder by Dikakoi would thread the ball through to Shabalala, breaking the lines of this Mexico defense. And Shabalala would be blazing down that left hand side towards goal in an act of direct winger play. And he would just move within his strides, take one touch inside the box and lace it into the top corner of the goal. And then what would follow would be a celebration that would ultimately become so iconic, because Shabalala and his Bafana teammates would break into a dance similar to a Macarena. And if you don't know what that is, you are way too young to be watching these videos. I don't know what's going on. If you don't know what the Macarena is, oh, okay. They hit that. It felt like the entire stadium was celebrating this goal. I feel bad for the Mexicans on the pitch because they just got swarmed. And the commentary for this goal is also just so iconic. Like, you gotta just go back and listen to that. Obviously, I can't include it in this video, I don't think. If we just play it lightly, maybe, but it was just iconic. Peter Drury just did an amazing job kind of tying this whole moment together with a bit of commentary that honestly created so much more hype for the entire tournament. This was just pure joy and togetherness, and honestly this 2010 World Cup needs to be talked about in a separate video, and I might just do it. Do it for the vibes. Honestly, I might just talk about the entirety of the 2010 World Cup. You guys let me know on Instagram. Don't let me know in the comments. I want the comments to be about the celebrations. And now let's just end the joy. Let's not talk about joy no more. We've done joy. We've done Thierry Henry shushing a referee. But let's talk about an Argentinian smurf. The greatest player of all time. There's no argument about it no more. After seeing a picture of Ronaldo with Donald Trump, we've got him doing Piers Morgan interviews. He's in the sports watching category. So today we celebrate Lionel Messi and a celebration that he executed against Real Madrid and Cristiano Ronaldo. In a game between Barcelona and Real Madrid back in 2017, Lionel Messi would execute a celebration that is still replicated to this day. Doing a celebration in front of 80,000 hostile fans that would just rile them up even more. Again, rage baiting. So let's just quickly talk about this game before we get into the celebration, because it was April 23rd of 2017. Real Madrid versus Barcelona at the Bernabeu, and by stoppage time it was 2-2. With Messi having already looked like he'd gone through multiple battles in this game, getting elbowed, kicked and bleeding from the mouth. But now with the final moments in the game ticking away, it would be Messi that would get his get back, getting his revenge on these Real Madrid fans and then just teasing them once it was complete. Because during this game and in this moment, Barcelona desperately needed to win, especially to keep the La Liga race alive that was ongoing during this time. Casemiro would put Real Madrid ahead in the game, but then Messi would equalize later on, making the game 1-1 before Rakitic would double the score and make it 2-1 to Barcelona. But then James Rodriguez would break the hearts of Barcelona fans by leveling up the score in the 86th minute. And by this time in the game, Real Madrid are down to 10 men, with Sergio Ramos being sent off earlier. And with a draw being enough to hand Real Madrid the title, Messi said, "I'm actually not going to let that happen." And in the 92nd minute of the game, it would be Barcelona that forged a transitional bit of play. One last bit of attack as all these Barcelona players were progressing up the pitch. It would be Jordi Alba that cut the ball back into the path of Lionel Messi. And like he did time and time again during his Barcelona career, Lionel Messi would just ghost into a space on a football pitch where nobody seemed to pick him up. At times it was like Lionel Messi was wearing an invisible cloak to avoid defenders in the box, you know, something like Harry Potter did in the early films. Because no Real Madrid players would be near him, he would ghost into the box and finish off this cutback that Jordi Alba would give to him. 3-2 Barcelona in the depths of the game. Messi takes off his top, goes to the opposing Real Madrid fans, holds up his jersey or his top with his name at the back and shows them who he is. With the number 10 and his name on the back, it was just a moment of pure rage baiting of the opposing crowd, and also a reminder that Messi can own you on any day of the week. If he's feeling up to scratch, he can do it, and he did it time and time again throughout his Barcelona career, not just to Real Madrid, but to every team under the sun. You know, this is not me highlighting that Messi made fun of Real Madrid, but it's me highlighting that Messi did this to multiple teams, and this was just a reminder that he could have done this celebration multiple times, but you guys annoyed him so much in this game that he really had to pull this one out the bag. It was Messi just telling Real Madrid that you should know my name by now. And you know what, it didn't actually end well for Messi and Barcelona, because despite this game, you know, not winning Real Madrid the La Liga in the game, they would go on to win La Liga. You know, Real Madrid would eventually win La Liga because they had a game in hand after this. But the moment, and this said moment of Messi putting up this top, is the only thing that we ever remember during this season. Like, nobody really remembers Real Madrid winning the league that year, but they did. And I'm pretty sure that in the Spanish Cup that year, Ronaldo would imitate this Messi celebration after he had scored against Barcelona. Editor, you're going to have to check that up and see if that's right. I don't know. That's just off memory. That's not in the script or anything. And from one moment of rage baiting in a game to another, we have to talk about the infamous Adebayor celebration against Arsenal when he scored after making a move to Manchester City. Now, Adebayor was an Arsenal striker that had a pretty messy exit to the club, but honestly was one of my all-time favourite strikers I had ever seen play for Arsenal and in the Premier League. On his day, he could pull out some of the most flashy finishes that I had ever seen. You know, one of the ones that comes to mind is when he flicked the ball up against Tottenham to himself and volleyed it into the back of the net. But honestly, for his stature, he was pulling out things that you would see from players that were half his height. You know, the technical ability to score some of the goals in his catalogue is outright outrageous. He felt at the time that Arsenal fans and Arsenal themselves had pushed him out of a club that he didn't really want to leave, with a bunch of Arsenal fans accusing him of chasing money by making a move to Manchester City, who had just been taken over by oligarchs. And honestly, there's always two sides to every story. You know, at the time I didn't really hate Adebayor for moving to Manchester City. I was just a bit bitter, but other Arsenal fans that were probably older at the time probably were hating on Adebayor for making such a move. A move to a Manchester City that were constantly on the rise and slowly but surely making their way as one of the giants in English football. It was a weird moment, and by the time Arsenal faced Manchester City, anger had been brewing in Adebayor's heart. But it wasn't just Adebayor's blood that was boiling for no reason, because Arsenal fans were giving him a tough time during a game that Arsenal were away from home at Manchester City, including some very, very disrespectful chants. You know, I'm not going to say it out loud in this video, but some of them were just disrespectful, and that's probably the least of the ones that I'm talking about. And there was stuff including his mum, elephants, you know, all this sort of stuff. It was crazy. And in the 80th minute, Adebayor would finally get the chance to taunt these Arsenal fans back, even though Manchester City were already winning the game. He would thump home a header after a Sean Wright-Phillips cross into the box, scoring a goal that would ultimately seal a 4-2 victory in the game. And if scoring against your old team isn't dramatic enough, Adebayor would take it there. He would take it there. You want to take it there? We can take it there. Yeah? Shout out 6-7. And I'm not talking about 6-7. I'm talking about this 6-7. The drill group. You want to take it there? We can take it there. Adebayor really took it there in this game. He took it there to the Arsenal fans, and he ran. He ran halfway across the entirety of the pitch just to celebrate in front of the Arsenal fans. He was a man possessed in this moment. The rage had taken over his body. The chance had got to his head, and he knee slid in front of Arsenal fans that had been abusing him all game. With the Arsenal fans throwing coins at him, you know, they're throwing books at him, bottles, you know, their beer glasses, I don't even know. They were throwing everything at this guy, but he was smirking. And this was after being held back by his Manchester City teammates. They were saying, no, don't do it. Adebayor couldn't care less. He hit them with the "how do you like me now? I just scored against you and you abused me for the entirety of the game, and my team won and your team lost. Hold that." This was a moment that sparked pure uproar, with stewards getting knocked out in the process by Arsenal fans throwing objects. You know, the whole stadium was in uproar. Manchester City fans clashing with Arsenal fans, and just imagine if Adebayor had done this at the Emirates. It would have been even crazier, but in the aftermath it was still breaking loose in the media, with pundits at the time condemning Adebayor for such disrespectful behaviour, and the FA would hand him a hefty £25,000 fine, with also a 2-match suspension taking place just for the celebration alone. You know, that is the peak of this video. We're talking about celebrations in football, and this celebration got Adebayor banned. And honestly, after hearing Adebayor talk about this recently, a couple years back now in an interview, I don't really blame him. You know, getting abused for like 80 minutes in a game and then scoring, you just want to go and get your get back. And he did that, and it created an iconic moment that people remember as the first thing that they kind of attached to Adebayor in his career, which is actually not a good thing. But I guess you got what you wanted. And now the last celebration that we will talk about in this video. You know, calm your horses. I haven't got all day to do this. So we have the final celebration. Well, I can't talk about a Messi celebration without talking about a Ronaldo celebration, because these are two of my goats. These are two of football goats. And these are two players that we must respect on equal terms. Now, when it comes to confidence, and some would say arrogance, nobody writes a better manual than Cristiano Ronaldo. The man honestly exudes both of these things, and one of his most iconic celebrations also exuded these things, because we've seen Messi hold up his top with his name on the back against 80,000 hostile, you know, Real Madrid supporters, but Ronaldo would do something even worse, triggering Barcelona supporters in a game that he would ultimately win with the final goal. Now let's rewind to April of 2012. Real Madrid and Barcelona are in a heated battle for La Liga during this time, with Barcelona having beaten Real Madrid to the championship 3 years running. So Real Madrid, Ronaldo, Jose Mourinho were desperate to get this back. So essentially, this El Clasico at the Camp Nou would be the title decider for the season, in a game that the previous season Real Madrid would lose 5-0. And the match would be intense, with the first goal scorer on the night being Sami Khedira, putting Real Madrid 1-0 up in the game. But in the second half, Alexis Sanchez would come off the bench and tie up the score, grabbing an equaliser in the 70th minute to make it 1-1 in the game. And then the stadium would just explode, because now Barcelona fans had the belief. They thought that Barcelona were going to do it. The tension was riling up. Barcelona fans needed to see their team score, but no. Enter Cristiano Ronaldo and his right-hand man, aka Robin at the time, Mesut Ozil. Because just 3 minutes after this Barcelona equaliser, Madrid would launch their own attack, with Mesut Ozil going into his prime playmaker mode and pulling out one of the best passes that I had ever seen. Well, not really, that's a bit of an over dramatization, but it was a brilliant ball. he threads a beautiful through ball through the Barcelona high line that they were playing at the time, which would be followed up by Ronaldo running onto the ball in perfect timing, latching onto this pass by Ozil and putting himself in a 1v1 scenario with Victor Valdez. And with his first touch in this moment, he rounds the keeper, putting himself in an even harder angle to score the goal, but slotting it away perfectly. And at that moment, you could just feel the power shift. And then following up that goal, Ronaldo would execute a celebration that we have all, let's say everyone in the world, has replicated this celebration. You know, some people might not, replicate the Sue celebration. Some people can't jump. They got bad knees, ankles. But this one, I know everyone has done this once in their life. After being booed throughout the entirety of this game, Ronaldo finally had the chance to get his lick back. So after scoring this goal, he would run towards the corner, start to slowly stroll, put his hand down, and just gesture that the Barcelona fans need to calm down. He was telling them to chill out. Yeah, calma, calma. You just chill out for a second because I just scored and you need to shush. This was the arrogance, the confidence all meshed into one celebration that ultimately defined Cristiano during this moment in his career. And with Real Madrid ultimately holding on to this 2-1 result and winning, and then going on to win La Liga, this was the perfect ending for Real Madrid and Ronaldo this season. And that goal was Ronaldo's 42nd in the league that season, and ultimately would help Real Madrid gain 100 points in La Liga. It was a crazy thing to do in this point of time with all the pressure on him, and again, it's something that we always look back on when we associate Ronaldo, celebrations, and just El Clasico in general. Now, of course, there are other celebrations in football that we can talk about, like Eric Cantona's strut against Sunderland after chipping the goalkeeper, or Mario Balotelli's "Why Always Me" celebration, pulling his top over his head and showing the crowd. But these celebrations I've actually covered in a video talking about aura moments in football. I don't know, it didn't really get a lot of views at the time, so you guys can watch that video if you want a similar one to this. But also, if you want me to follow up this video with a direct part 2, let me know in the comments below, leave a like, and of course if we hit the like goal of 1 billion likes, I will definitely do a part 2 to this video, and if not, we'll just move on. I've been Jib Rules, and make sure you stay safe, stay blessed, and peace.